written and created by Sad Girl Productions. The following content is for informational, educational, and documentary purposes only. Sad Girl Productions does not condone, promote, or encourage any form of criminal activity, violence, or gang affiliation. All individuals discussed are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Portions of this narrative are based on public records, news reports by veteran journalists such as Kim Bolan, and official police briefings. Viewer discretion is advised. Bhupinder Singh Johal, better known on the streets as Bindy, was arguably one of the very first notoriously known Punjabi gangsters in Canada before social media existed. He became one of the very first Indo-Canadian gangsters to be covered by media, frequently appearing across TV screens in the Lower Mainland. To a generation of South Asian youth in Surrey and Richmond, he was a middle finger to a world that wanted them silent. As he stood before news cameras in 1994, he would utter the words that would later define his legacy. "I'm still around, bitch." During the rant, he wasn't just threatening a rival, he was claiming a city. 20 years after the single bullet at the Palladium, the music has stopped and the club is long closed. But the legend of Bindy Johal refuses to die. Bindy arrived in Canada at age 4. Throughout his elementary years, he was the classic immigrant success story. He was academically gifted and, by all accounts, a well-behaved kid. To understand the man Bindy Johal eventually became, you have to look at the kid who was once the pride of his parents. He wasn't a born criminal. He was an honor roll student who was exceptionally bright, but he was growing up in an East Van environment where being smart wasn't enough to stay safe. By the time he reached junior high school, he was just another kid trying to navigate the complex social hierarchy of East Vancouver. One of his old teachers at Sir Charles Tupper, Rob Sandhu, famously noted that in grade 8, Bindy showed no signs of the violence that would later define him. In the mid-90s, if you were a brown kid in the Lower Mainland, you basically lived in two worlds. In one, you were expected to be the model minority, a quiet student and the sons of hard-working immigrant parents. Most kids in the Sikh community of the Lower Mainland were expected to wear what's known as a dastar, or better known as a turban, to cover their uncut hair as a cultural symbol of honor and self-respect. Many of them were proud of their heritage and their families. But in Canada at the time, this made them a target for bullying, and most of the time you had to take the abuse. But in the other world, there was Bhupinder Singh Johal. For the kids growing up in Surrey and Richmond, their identity was under constant attack. They were proud of their roots, but they were exhausted by the bullies who targeted them for their turbans or the color of their skin. They were caught in a vice, the expectations of a traditional home and the reality of a hostile street. The streets of Vancouver didn't always respect their cultural dignity. Bindy's story isn't a simple rise and fall. It's a paradox. He was a man who allegedly put racists on stretchers to protect his community. Bindy Johal was an example of someone who walked a path that was a total departure from the values of his community. He took the spiritual resilience of his parents, and he brought it to the cold, hard lifestyle of the street. He was a man who saw the racism directed at his people and decided to strike back with a violence that shocked everyone, including his own community. Just like many Caucasian youth looked up to and followed Jonathan Bacon, many Indo-Canadian kids would idolize Bindy Johal in the same manner. He eventually became a neighborhood celebrity to some, and somewhat of a local hero. He was one of the first people in his area to refuse to take the abuse from the white kids in the community. He was well respected for what he stood for, but in trading his heritage for the life of a drug kingpin, Bindy didn't just fight off the racists. He brought a war home to the very streets his community worked so hard to build. You've been watching a short excerpt from Sad Girl Productions. To watch more stories like this, visit our channel.